And we are back. News Gang is here again.
Somebody was asking, did I take you to a break manually or electronically? Of course I did it manually. And by the way, before you proceed...
Are you having a trust deficit? They can't trust you.
We don't trust you.
A friend of mine from IBC, whose name I will not mention, saying, what we are proposing is to make the results path more visible. Remember, the law is both manual and electronic complement each other. We are not doing away with the electronic results transmission. That is the safety they're saying everybody should have. And probably, maybe many people didn't internalize the content of the bill. Many people probably didn't read the bill as it were. But these discussions will come up as we move on. And you could see it elicited a lot of political heat. And a lot of what I see and heard was suspicion as opposed to the content. But those are things that we'll see on the floor of the House when the bill is debated properly.
If it gets there anytime soon.
Hope so.
All right, so let us go to OKA. Yeah, because this like it was yesterday actually. So much happens in this country actually. One day it feels like it's a whole week. They called it a coalition agreement. Finally, we saw what was happening. Martha Karua joining and very interesting times. Linus, I don't know what you thought about because OKA has been going to extraordinary lengths to demonstrate that the departure of Moses Wetangula and Musalia Mudavadi really hasn't changed much. If anything, I think the other day I heard them say it was good riddance.
And with a great deal of success, Joe, they have managed to shake off the earthquake because Musalia Mudavadi's exit was supposed to have weakened OKA, which was not, it wasn't a visible, very visible political formation as such. It was more of spoken of in boardrooms. And it seems the departure of Musalia Mudavadi then spurred the rest of the principals into some activity. And this week we have seen incredible events. And I don't remember the last time we saw anything big from OKA. I think the last time was those rallies in Machakos and Kakamega, and then...
At least they walked out of Bomas.
Then they walked out of Bomas, and then here they are. A very well choreographed event that you saw yesterday, the signing of the deed by the four principals. There used to be 5, now there are 4. Basically, OKA has earned itself some life. In fact, we had declared it dead here, right here on this set before.
Dead at infancy?
Yeah, dead at infancy, because it had no identity, it had no presence in the public domain. But now they're making that presence. Look at that very well choreographed event with the national flag as the backdrop.
And the colors
on
the table.
yeah, quite something that they thought out very well. But then the question comes, what next? And they've given their what next in 2 ways. The first, they've said we've signed what they're calling a deed of assignment.
Yeah.
That basically allows them to work together. And then towards the end of this month, specifically 28th of February, they'll be handing to the registrar of political parties the coalition agreement. Yeah. Coalition agreement. Now that sounds like a plan. So on plan, I think, and revival, basic revival, back to life, resuscitation to life, I think OKA has had a good week.
Yeah, but yet Francis, they have to continually shake off this tag that, especially the Kenya Kwanza, people have been throwing things their way. Oh, we know you guys will go to Azimio and whatever. So there's a sense in which here they are trying to resuscitate whatever was left of it, but at the same time, they have to keep fending off all these accusations that we know you are not doing this for the long haul.
And you see, it's a dilemma. It's a trap. If they were to go all the way to the ballot, their opponents will say, we didn't think you would. In any case, even if you do, you will not do very well. And if they were to move to Azimio, for example, they will say, we told you, we said we said you would. And the reverse would also be, if they were to join the Kenya Kwanza team, they would say, oh, see, you have changed your mind. That's
you cried betrayal. Look, yes. who's joining now.
Yes, who's joining now. So it's not a very nice place to be for the One Kenya Alliance team. And you see, the Bomas event split the One Kenya Alliance team right down the middle. It is now up to the One Kenya Alliance team, or whatever remains of it, to get some footing and try and move in the political path. But a few while I agree with Linus on plan and resuscitation efforts, they scored huge, but some of their sentiments seemed to sell them out. Yeah? Like, for example, when you hear the Wiper leader, when asked whether they would join the Kenya Kwanza team, he said something very interesting, which I would want us to listen to.
They did high up. The parliamentary group, this is celebration time. One Kenya. One people. One Kenya.
One people.
One more time. One Kenya.
One people.
One Kenya.
Kenya Kwanza. Has it been registered? Or you talk about Kenya Kwisha? Just for clarification. Yeah. Now they'll be dealt with by the Buffalo Soldier.
Buffalo Soldier.
See what I meant? Resuscitation efforts, good, well done. But some of the sound bites, selling them out. You see, that was a diss on the Kenya Kwanza team. The Kenya Kwanza is deputy president, it's Musalia Mudavadi, it is Moses Wetangula. So when the Wiper leader says Kenya Kwisha, he's not saying very nice things about the Kenya Kwanza team.
I wonder where they get those lines from.
Yeah, yeah. And saying Buffalo Soldier, yeah, is the team.
He's going to deal with it.
Yeah, and then related to that was when asked what are the ideals, what does the One Kenya Alliance team stand for, and this is what he had to say.
We don't talk in absolute terms because we are Kenyans. The Kenyans need each other, but there are basic benchmarks and basic considerations. We talked of commonality of ideology. If we are fighting against corruption, you cannot come to me, Kennedy, and say, your Lord, you have a debt burden out of stealing people's resources, public resources, and expect that you will meet you halfway.
See, once again, you'll hear the day before, I think the 2 days before, when the Azimio la Umoja team went to Nakuru, they were saying not very nice things about the Kenya Kwanza team and matters related to corruption. And here is Kalonzo and his team talking about the same issues. And so those are some of these small things that they said that tended to show that probably give the impression that they could be heading the Azimio route, if they will. So either way, whichever decision they will make will be an interesting decision. And then the second question would be, what would be the impact of whichever decision they make, either to join the Azimio team, if they do, if they were to make a decision to join the Kenya Kwanza team, if they do, and if they decide to go all the way to the ballot. Because just like we said here last week, in this election, every vote will count.
Yvonne,
you know, Francis, you're interpreting every symbol and every sign you've seen there. Maybe you want to add that Buffalo Soldier is actually a reggae hit.
It was.
Yet another one. Hadn't seen that one, but you've...
No, it was. Actually, it plays these days quite a bit during their rallies.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yvonne is...
For me, I think...
I was going to say you're pleading the fifth, but that fifth now is a totally different story in our country.
I'm telling you, yes, no. I mean, the fifth is, has a very different meaning here in this country. I mean, look, they've signed their deed and, they're saying they want to work together and that perhaps this might have been a good week. But let's be honest, they're still going to face the same question that they have faced before. who will be the flag bearer for the One Kenya Alliance. You recall Kalonzo...
So they said Buffalo Soldier.
Well, he said soldier. I'm not sure that it's... I've heard it from all of them. But remember, in fact, when Musalia Mudavadi then announced his alliance with Deputy President William Ruto's UDA, and Kalonzo Musyoka came out and said, oh, actually, in fact, before Musalia had left, we had decided that I was the candidate. And, you know, it had already been made. And so one of the things you saw right after the earthquake moment was Kalonzo coming to the fore to say, it is I am the candidate, I was the one that was selected.
Now the path is clear.
Now the path is clear was exactly what he said. And in fact, he did talk about the fact that, you know, when he was making that declaration, that he had in fact offered Musalia Mudavadi the deputy president's slot. I know we can hear that in just a moment. There we go.
Wawili waliniacha wakawacha mimi na Gideon Moi, hakuna ubaya. I wish them luck. Now I want to tell you, mimi nilikuwa tayari kumpatia ndugu Musalia Mudavadi deputy president wa Kalonzo Musyoka. Nilikuwa tayari na tulikuwa tumeongea na hao wengine tukaelewana. Gideon Moi hakuwa na problem, Weta hakuwa na problem. Sasa hata sijui huko ameenda atapatiwa nini.
So you notice he's been very, very aggressive in putting himself forward as, you know, it is me and I'm now the one left, which I find very interesting to have all of these revelations after Musalia Mudavadi has left. And perhaps, you know, we know how long it took them to come to an agreement to even make an announcement, which they never did while Musalia was there. They spent quite a bit of time in boardrooms and meetings at hotels discussing a formula.
And lots of tea.
And lots of tea to decide who would be the flag bearer. And yet they're still going to have to deal with this issue of a flag bearer, of how they work together, of, again, those positions, who will be the running mate, and how they will do it. And, of course, the big elephant in the room of whether they go it alone or, you know, they lean to one side or the other, or as Gashuri says,
you know, I remember...
They lean to one side, not to the other. There is no other option.
Yes, I remember actually those moments of haggling and jostling. In fact, the more famous one was Cleophas Malala actually was saying that they should name a flag bearer by December. That flag bearer must
25th of December.
Must be December 25th, yes, the Christmas day. That flag bearer must be Musalia Mudavadi. Or Musalia Mudavadi. And it was quite interesting to hear Kalonzo Musyoka saying that, in fact, in the midst of all of that, he had actually offered Musalia Mudavadi the position of deputy or running mate, as it were.
Yeah, but you know, he then comes across as the more, or perhaps most senior, experienced politician, you know, in this stable. You've got Gideon Moi, who just recently took over chairmanship of KANU. You've got Martha Karua's and NAK Kenya. Who else is there? Cyrus Jirongo as well. A seasoned politician starting off in his youth in YK 92. But, you know, as far as experience goes, you know, being a statesman, if you like, having been a vice president, and you can see him trying to fashion himself as the senior most and therefore the one befitting of that position. So let's see if they won't be able to now solve this a lot faster than they did, you know, in the last few months.
But there's also the question of the voting bloc that you bring. But Linus, I'm quite curious about Martha Karua. Not much is being said about her. First, not to mention the fact that to some people, she was a surprise entry into the OKA fray. I mean, she gave indications a few days before that, attending some rallies with them, hosting them at one, actually in Kirinyaga, and that sort of thing. But it's not perhaps the first thing that would have come to anybody's mind, somebody who's observed Kenya's politics over the years. That would not have been the natural home of Martha Karua in the bigger scheme of things, if you look at how our politics has played out over the years.
The question will actually be whether that is her final destination, because in my view, that is, she's only made her next step. Not too long ago, we associated her with the Mount Kenya Unity Forum.
3K.
Of 3K, that is Moses Kuria, Martha Karua, and
Mwangi
Kiunjuri.
The 3 MKs, yeah?
The 3 MKs, yes. And while we were still watching that, 1 MK leaves the scene in Moses Kuria. Has not been very active because obviously he's attending to his medical situation out of the country. And then TSP also seems to be running its own show Mwangi Kiunjuri increasingly trying to chart his own path.
Yeah.
And then Martha Karua, I feel, was left to make a decision on what to do with NARC Kenya. And she decided, hey, this one is a moving train. I can hop on this one. And I think she has done it well. And there's something that is uniquely Kenyan in what we are all seeing. There's this class of people called principals. This class of politicians called principals would normally be owners of political parties. They come from certain regions. You would claim to have some following or a voting bloc that follows you. And that's what you take to the table. And the table being where the nominations are carried out on who should become the flag bearer. It's a uniquely Kenyan presidential selection system. But we have to watch Martha Karua and try to understand what she's trying to do, because also she's not sent a very clear message on what she wants personally. Is she running for governor of Kirinyaga County, or is he angling for a position
on the
nationally?
Front, yeah.
Or is she actually aspirant for presidential flag bearer of One Kenya Alliance? We just have to watch Martha Karua and see what she's up to.
Yes.
At least as at this point, she has said she's interested in the Kirinyaga governor seat. That is the current position. Well, we have 184 days.
But she had a rather cryptic message in Kirinyaga where she was saying she wants that, but there was something she was saying about a national role that,
yes.
you know, she would not mind
Yeah.
a national role. I think that's where the confusion then crept in.
Absolutely, and that's why I'm saying we have 184 days to the general election. So between now and then, many things are likely to happen. Not once, not twice, I've heard her name mentioned among people who can be running mates.
Somebody's running mate, yes.
Somebody's running mate. And actually across the political divide.
Yeah.
And so that I would think also remains one of the options on the table. And we will still get to the next level of this discussion where if, let's say, this One Kenya Alliance team was to field a presidential candidate, who becomes the presidential candidate, deputized by who? If they were to decide to join any of the current formations, which position would they get? Because much as the discussion by the political team would be, oh, no, we are not discussing positions, we are discussing the greater good of the people. Positions will still come in at one point because why are you contesting for the presidency? It is to look for power. It is that power that enables you to do all those things that you're promising on the campaign trail. And so the question of power sharing is one question that will still come up. And by the way, one of the biggest headaches that I think will come up very soon is the running mate headache. Because whichever way you go, whoever you decide will be your running mate, there will be repercussions in positively and negatively. There will be consequences, as it were. So yes, it's a time to look at the scenarios. And also remember, timelines are kicking in quite fast. And so it will not be possible for the political class, especially those who are looking for the presidency, to postpone this matter any longer. At one point, they will have to make a decision.
We need to go to "We're Just Friends." I think we have that soundbite because that's where the conversation is going.
There is no agreement whatsoever that has been signed between the three political parties. There is no coalition agreement that has been arrived between the three political parties. What is there is we are friends.
Now, this friends thing, Lina...
Can I just say, though,
Okay.
before you get into it, listen, when you're in a relationship and a man says we're just friends, it's very scary. Like, what are we? We're just friends. Sorry, I just thought I would put that in context.
But
now you can, Ines can go ahead. It's a very dangerous statement. Like,
but to take it from there, Yvonne, every so often some people have said we are just friends, and then eventually they ended up marrying. So maybe it's the first stage of that relationship where
when he publicly declares
hautaki kuchoma picha sana, eventually you end up marrying. Something like that.
Well, we hope that will be the case.
Let me ask. Let's try and get into the mind of Johnson Muthama a little bit. Why did he issue that statement? Because he actually called. You know, there's a difference when you're
being asked,
stepped somewhere. You know, you're getting out of a hotel where you're having coffee, and then someone asks, "Hey, what is it with you and ANC?" But this was actually a very intentional press event where he actually called journalists. And the thrust of it was to sort of clarify the relationship that exists between these parties.
Joe, and just to the point made by, very good point made by Yvonne and Francis, you know, you can't elope and expect a marriage certificate. They don't come together at all, which is actually the message that was being delivered by UDA chairman Johnson Muthama. But there are certain nuances that UDA needed to address after after entering this alliance with Musalia Mudavadi and Moses Wetangula. They needed to address the disquiet in what was traditionally considered the base of UDA, especially Central Kenya. It should be telling that right after the Nakuru rallies, once DP Ruto had done his first lap of honor with Musalia Mudavadi and Wetangula, he quickly came back to Kiambu County, not once but twice actually, including last Sunday doing various stops, attending church in Rironi, Limuru, and addressing roadside rallies. This is very, very deliberate because there emerged a narrative immediately after Musalia Mudavadi came in that said, you see, the position of DP, the position of running mate in UDA ANC will definitely go to the next senior person in that arrangement, who is Musalia Mudavadi. What this did do, it actually introduced an element of suspicion on the part of Central Kenya especially, which has been the base that the Deputy President has been quoting all this time. So he needed to address that. And I think it fell on Johnson Muthama to call a press conference and say, you know, no, hold on. We don't have an agreement yet. But the other thing, Joe, that you need to note is the suspicion was not just about the presidential race, but also the other races. And remember, it went beyond suspicion to something very, very active. If you remember the incident between Bishop
Sakaja.
Yes, and Johnson Sakaja and Bishop Margaret Wanjiru, because this is what alliances create. Because instead of Johnson Sakaja as your ANC candidate, now you'll have to pull him together with Margaret Wanjiru of UDA, who has been on the ground. So the disquiet was at different levels. It's not just the presidential. I think it also went down to other levels like the gubernatorial races, senatorial, and even MCAs and members of parliament. So he had to come and say, hey, no, we're just friends. Don't panic. We don't have anything. We don't have a marriage certificate.
Don't read too much into this. And I guess that nomination headache, obviously, something that all these coalitions, Azimio, even OKA, if they go all the way, will actually deal with. But there's something very interesting that has then ensued in the sort of narrative that UDA is putting out there. And I think it is also a build-up from what Muthama was saying in terms of addressing some of those concerns. I've seen the UDA brigade essentially de-emphasizing this question of position, who will get what, I mean, the DP has talked a lot about it. Last night, Alice Wahome was on JKL with Gladys Wanga, and one of the things that she repeated quite a number of times was that, we are really not, at this stage, we are really not concerned about positions. I mean, the truth is that many people wonder about that. What am I going to get? What is our person going to get? And usually that's how people would bargain. But I think it has become necessary for them to de-emphasize that, to sort of deal with the suspicions, the disquiet, the unease that might come from some of their bases as a result of this at this stage, very amorphous arrangement between these parties that came together under Kenya Kwanza.
And that's exactly what the Deputy President did say. Let's listen to him. He talked about this issue not being about positions, just reiterating what you said, Alice Wahome said here on JKL. The Deputy President, William Ruto.
Waswahili wanasema umoja ni nini? Munasema tuungane na Weta na Musalia na Hasla na Gachagua na wabunge wetu na Duale na wale wote tuunganishe Kenya. Hebu nione wala wanasema tuungane jameni. Na tumesema hivi, tumeungana kwa sababu tuko na mpango. We have a plan, we have an agenda, we have a vision for a nation that is united and a nation that is prosperous.
Ours is not about positions, but listen, they're going to have to confront this issue at some point. As I said, so will all the others. Look, if you want to be able to run the next government and you are in this arrangement with people who are not a part of your political party and who themselves are principals and leaders of other political parties, you're definitely going to have these discussions about, positions, about power sharing. It is crucial because that is how you'll end up delivering on your mandate that you set out, right? And remember, a lot of this also came after that frontline headline in the Standard newspaper talking about, details of a deal where Musalia Mudavadi would get, position of chief minister, and then I think he would get the finance docket and devolution as well as others, and they also listed out what Weta would get, which would be a rather uncomfortable conversation considering UDA also has to put its affairs in order. So the issue of positions aside,
and their opponents actually jumped on it.
And said, well...
When they went to Muranga, for instance, it was actually the main agenda of that meeting. They kept saying, look, I mean, they told us that Central was part of the deal.
Exactly. Look, it is not. But look, this is something they're definitely going to have to deal with. Another thing they're going to have to deal with now that they're in whatever working arrangement, are they going to have a joint manifesto, for instance, like, the National Rainbow Coalition did? What are the policy positions there, in that position? And CORD, having one as well. And for me, the problem with not just Kenya Kwanza, but, Azimio, all of these things are typically done in a hurry, very quickly. 6 months to an election, and they're still saying we're just friends, we haven't, worked out the finer details of that. When are you going to do that? It's a very short period of time. It's a lead up to a general election when these parties are themselves having to figure out their own issues, right? So they're going to have their own primaries. They're going to have to figure out their own party membership lists. They're going to have to canvass issues. And exactly what we're seeing now is similar to what we saw in the lead up to many of the other coalitions that we've seen in this country that have not ended well. Remember what happened with NARC, I think it was September? By the time now they were sort of, cobbling it up together, and you've got these people who are leaving KANU because they're displeased, and they come and they find those of the National, Alliance Party Kenya. That was Kibaki, Wamalwa, and Charity Ngilu, I believe. So all of this is happening September 2002. Then we're doing our...
October.
Yes. So when they were leaving for an election in December.
Was 14th of October.
Exactly.
Yeah.
October 14th,
so you take a look at this. They don't have time to canvass issues, figure out their points of synergy. What is our manifesto going forward? How are we going to do this? What are going to be some of the compromises? And it does really set up for a messy one ahead. And by the way, it's not just for Kenya Kwanza. Even, other coalitions like Azimio.
Nairobi, Azimio has to deal with Ngati.
Absolutely. Has to deal with Tim Wanyonyi. Yes.
The current governor.
So it really is about, when you take a look at it, all of these coalitions are put together, not because of joint or similar ideology, but to get power. When NARC came in, it was to, remove KANU and then, Uhuru Kenyatta from power. And so these are the issues they're going to face. And for me, that we're not friends statement then just says there's going to be, a long road ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like us to push this a little bit because there's something else we have seen over the last few days, especially coming from the UDA side, this very frontal attack on the president. I mean, for a long time, the deputy president, for example, skirted around this issue of the president. I mean, even when he had problems with people like Matiang'i, like Joe Musheru, and all of that, he kept talking about them, you know, in a roundabout manner, saying, oh, these people in government and all of that. But he never quite referred to the president in such a direct manner as he did, and many of his troops have been doing since. And we heard them speak in Kirinyaga in very clear terms, addressing the president on the backdrop of these reports that the president may be making a trip in the Mount Kenya region. And I think it would be good for us to listen to some of those statements that we saw in Kirinyaga.
Lakini kwa heshima kubwa nataka nimuulize rafiki yangu rais, tafadhali rais wetu, hiyo project ya kitendawili haiwezekani.
Raila Odinga, you have the definition of a serious political project. Na Wakenya kupitia katiba ya 2010, they will have their constitutional right to elect their next president without coercion and intimidation.
Mheshimiwa Rais, umesema utakuja kwa mlima kuuza Raila Odinga na kusema ile kitu mlikosania na Ruto. Tumekukaribisha, tunakugoja hapa kwa ground. Tunakugoja na usikae sana. Tuko na haja na wewe rais.
You see, even that one said, like, tafadhali, you know, the way they say, for example, in Tanzania, the way they usually say, naomba nikushike, like there's this thing, you know, tafadhali, tunakuomba, and all of that, haiwezekani, and all that. I mean, this was really taking the battle to the president in his own backyard and saying, hey, enough is enough. I mean, the time of velvet gloves is over. Now it is actually bare knuckles. And I think that's something perhaps we're going to see a lot more of. Francis, actually you were there when those statements were being made. You covered that rally.
Yes, I was in Kirinyaga on Saturday at Dhiba grounds. And you see, it was inevitable. What happened in Kirinyaga and actually had begun in Bungoma will continue to be the case. It was the case today in Kajiado County. And it is also likely to be the case this weekend in Kilifi, Kwale, and Taita Taveta, as well as Mombasa. Because the gloves are off. The year that we were talking about, 2022, ikikuja, that we are now in the thick of things in 2022. Actually, the countdown to the August 9th, the August presidential election and the general election is here. So the restraint with which especially the Jubilee members who moved with DP Ruto were dealing with the president is now over, so to say. One, because they are not convinced that there are any consequences if they were to attack the president directly. And then secondly, they talk about President Uhuru Kenyatta going to the mountain maybe sometime next month, if that remains the plan, that he's going to say quite a number of things as to why they fell out with the deputy president, a spill the beans kind of a tour. Now the question is, will there be people in the mountain particularly who will say, is this what happened, and maybe change their mind? Or will there be people who will say, okay, we have heard you, but we have already made a decision on who we are going to vote for? Or will there be people who will say, listening to what the president has said, and maybe they were interested in voting, they will say, I'm not interested in voting anyway. So the consequences of that tour, they may be there, they may not be there, depending on what he says. Maybe some of the things he will say, people will say, that one we have heard. Or probably he will say some things and people will say, I've never heard that. Or maybe ask him, why didn't you tell us that in advance? Or why didn't you tell us when it happened? So the consequences of that tour will be out there for people to analyze. And that's why probably the UDA MPs are daring him to come. If he says some of those things, they will say, we had already told you he's going to say this. In the event that he doesn't go, they will say, we dared him to come and he didn't. So either way, it will have some consequences. As to whether there is any time now to change people's minds on where they want to vote or how they want to vote is a discussion that is out there. But it will be interesting to see what the president says.
But either
some of the things that he probably would say have been said in silent circles. Once in a while, you'll hear mamas, he said this, he didn't say this. And so if he was to say those things in public, and then probably would be out there to gauge the reaction of the people on whether they buy what they're saying or what he's saying, or they will say they're unbothered.
But either way, Linus, let me come to you. It would suggest that they are not taking that visit by the president for granted, that it is something they're paying attention because politically it is an event or it is something, a development that is worth watching because potentially, I mean, if the president is going, I imagine he's going with a view to trying to turn the tide, as it were, against what has been seen for a long time as a wave in favor of the deputy president. So the deputy president and his troops are not sitting in their hands and saying it doesn't matter whether the president comes or not.
No, they're not taking that lightly. In fact, when you see them saying we are waiting, it is because they really know it matters and they know it's going to be potentially consequential. But on the attacks on the president, basically Uhuru Kenyatta was the last target, because UDA has done those attacks as part of their style across the country for a while now. You remember very well, Deputy President William Ruto has attacked governors of Central Kenya, not one, several of them. He's gone for Kiraitu Murungi, he's gone for others, he's gone for Njoro, Kimemia. He's also attacked the Mount Kenya Foundation, the business leaders that he said wanakaa kwa mahoteli. So the only remaining target was Uhuru Kenyatta, and now he too has been...
It's fair game now.
It's fair game now. Now, I don't know whether it's a strategy that works. I know it used to work to fight incumbency. That is what made political careers in the opposition. But I think something is changing, because this is a deputy president of the same government headed by the president, meaning this is your boss. So there is some limitation. There is supposed to be some restraint on how far you can go. If you remember, Joe, 2002, President Daniel Arap Moi ditched Saitoti at a public rally in Kilgoris and said, urafiki na uongozi tofauti. I have nothing personal against this guy, but urafiki na uongozi tofauti is not my pick for next president. But let's remember, there is absolutely nothing in record, and you can look for it, nothing in record of George Saitoti, the late George Saitoti, attacking President Moi or even criticizing him for the position that he had taken. Here is a strange situation where the deputy president is finding himself in a situation where he has to criticize his boss. Now, if he wants to do the whole thing of running against incumbency, then he has to run against the record of this government. He can't claim some and castigate others. I mean, it's what you do when you're in the opposition. You have to run completely against the record of this government. But what will happen is what Rigathi was asking the president to do. And we haven't confirmed officially that there will be a trip by President Uhuru Kenyatta in Central Kenya to explain things. Will he actually go and explain that this is what happened between me and William Ruto? I don't think he'll take that approach. What we've seen the president do is a very restrained and indirect way of messaging. Very indirect way of messaging. He's not frontal. He'll shake hands and laugh with the DP in Uhuru Gardens, but sneak in Raila into his
official program.
What we expect to see is that kind of soft approach, where he'll not go frontal with UDA, he'll not go frontal with the deputy president, but he might, behind closed doors, say very difficult things. We saw him say in Bomas and say in Nakuru something to do with athletics. I gave this guy the baton, but he's running backwards, and things like that. And one thing you can't take away from Uhuru Kenyatta is his effectiveness on the platform. He can do a sentence or two that can be quite damaging. And then again, it comes with the might of the office. And Joe, you know very well, when it comes to jobs, in your CV, everyone's CV in the room here, you'll have your boss there, because they'll be the ones recommending you for that position. Remember, if DP Ruto was to have a CV, whether political or otherwise, it should contain the name of President Kenyatta. So I don't know whether this frontal attack, which seems to be very well sustained right now, whether it will be counterproductive. I fear it might be counterproductive, especially in central Kenya, where the attacks have been conducted. And I just want us to listen to Musalia Mudavadi, who was actually joined in very, very sharp attacks on President Kenyatta. Let's listen to Mudavadi here. He's been very critical lately, and he seems to be the one with the brief to attack policy, because he's been talking a lot about the SGR. I think in one of the rallies he said people can't eat.
Barabara na reli.
Barabara na reli. And I think in the same rally, DP Ruto said tumejenga reli na tumejenga barabara.
Yeah.
So this is a difficult campaign when it comes to framing of messages, because DP Ruto will still want to run with a bit of incumbency that we have done.
Which he has, yes. He says, si tumekuja hapa tumejenga barabara, si tumefanyia hii. So it's, like you say, it's very difficult for him. And it's actually easier for Musalia Mudavadi to be the one that takes shots at this administration. Yeah, so that mix is going to be as tricky as trying to count beans and maize in a plate of githeri. I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah, he has to cherry pick what is beneficial and what is not, because at the end of the day, when you come up with an economic model which you say is the antithesis of what exists right now, and you've been part of it, it's an interesting campaign that we'll have to see how that one goes. Yes, Linus, something to add, because we need to...
No, you can proceed, Joe.
Yeah. Okay, because we need to take this home, actually.
Yeah, and as we take it home, I look at the various messages that will be coming from the various political teams. And you see, the interesting thing about politics and politicians is that there's no regret in what you had said yesterday. There's no... And you don't have to explain why you have changed your mind about a certain thing. And there's no drama about feeling guilty that last week you said this, last month you said this, or last election you stood for A, B, C, D. As long as the current interests are concerned, they supersede anything else that you may have stood for previously. I think that is the modus operandi of politics, unfortunately.
And just one more write down whether attacks work, the strategy of attacking. The problem with our country is it is demarcated along regions, and regional kingpins have their voices. It's not sometimes possible to criticize a regional kingpin in their home. And just the same way, it will be very difficult to criticize William Ruto in the North Rift. It can be very, very difficult as well to hit at Uhuru Kenyatta in Mount Kenya.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think there are two questions that people have been asking. I don't know whether we have time to answer them. One is how Jimmy Wanjigi disappeared from OKA. But the second one is, what happened to William Kabogo?
Well, Let me attempt to answer the first one. Yvonne will answer the second one.
No, I think let me answer the first one about Jimmy Wanjigi. Kalonzo Musyoka actually did say it when they were signing the deed. He said, Jimmy Wanjigi is not on the table right now. He is in ODM and he has his issues with ODM and his party leader, and he needs to solve those. And for now, he is off the table.
Basically, this is just a table of party leaders.
Party leaders and principals. They're not a party leader. I don't want to talk about all the rumor that's on social media because I don't know whether that's.
You see, on that particular
talk.
Oh, yeah.
Huh? No, you might attend.
No.
On that particular question one, you see, who was seated there? Who was signing that coalition? Deed of assignment at the Kalonzo Musyoka Center. They were principals. Yeah, party leaders, if you may like. So Jimmy is not a party leader. So he probably wasn't considered a principal. And now, as long as he's in ODM and he's looking for the ODM ticket, he's not considered one of the principals in ODM. I would think there's only one principal in ODM who is Raila Odinga. And
he was not there.
And he was not there. Yeah. So probably they wouldn't want to maybe confuse the situation because he would have signed as who? As a party leader, he's not. Francis, as a principal in ODM, he's not.
Okay, William.
Francis, you cover Parliament. Isn't it time for a shadow principal?
Maybe.
William Kabogo.
He wants to be governor in Kiambu County. And so...
No, we saw him at Bomas, and then since then...
And then, Tujibebe wa Kenya Party.
Yeah. So he wants to be governor in Kiambu. So there are a lot of arithmetic therein. And there are quite a number of other people who are also interested in the seat.
But we haven't seen him past Bomas.
You look for the place where you would survive easily and consider the numbers and how they would look like.
We haven't seen him after Bomas.
Absolutely. So in town.
Okay, let's take this home.